seconds to go live on LinkedIn. So
okay.
All right, welcome back to another live. I'm your host, Joseph Lewin. And if you're out there, you're creating content, you're doing video, or you're working on any kind of project where there's audio or video, you put a ton of effort into scripting it and creating the campaigns and distribution and all the other things. But what if you put it out there and the way that your voice sounds or the way that the voice actor sounds is not engaging people, and so people just scroll on by, they don't click on the ad or they don't watch the video through? Man, that is a ton of wasted effort. So I'm super excited to have a real voice actor, David Gilbert, on to give us some pointers on, for lay people like me, on how we can come across better when we are creating content. And then also, when does it actually make sense to bring in a voiceover talent to help you with your video versus trying to do the DIY version. So, David, super excited to have you on today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joseph. Great to be here.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about it. We've been connected on LinkedIn forever, and this is the first time we're getting to talk. So thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Who knew?
Yeah, so what's one factor, or even just, if there's two or three things that get people to stay tuned in when somebody's talking versus, just immediately tuning out?
Well, the overarching thing, there's two things. First is your audio quality, because you can get away with bad video, but bad audio will tune people out. So echoes, background noises, no clarity in the actual audio. So that's sort of a given. You have to have clean audio or you're going to tune people out. The second thing, and I actually learned this going through a mental health journey. Counselor said, whatever's going on here is coming out here, right? So if you wake up in the morning and you have to do this video, you want to do this video, but you got cut off by somebody in the car, or your spouse pissed you off, or whatever, the kids are annoying, the dog, whatever. If you don't center yourself, everything that's in your brain's going to come out. So, whatever's going on inside your head, when you get into the recording space, whatever it is, at your desk with the camera, it's important to be present. And so the people you're trying to communicate with and connect with, they're going to pick up all those subtle cues. So you have to be in a good state of mind, being authentic. One of the biggest directions we get in commercial work now is, real person, conversational. They don't want this announcer from the 1950s, because they know that the advertisers know that if you want to connect with an audience to get them to buy your product, or, vote for this person, whatever it is, you have to be engaging. You have to be authentic, right? So trying to sell something in a video is going to turn people off. So just being yourself and trying not to put on this voice or put on this persona, at the end of the day is what matters most to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of funny because we're live, so we didn't have quite as much time to troubleshoot, but we got I think maybe it's coming from my end, a little bit of an audio issue. So we're pointing that out, and calling me out on that one. So
well, it wasn't meant to call you. It's just the nature of it, and especially when you have two people on a session, like you're recording a Zoom or you're doing this. There's so many variables between the environments, the equipment, the connectivity. Like the more you can get rid of all those little issues, the better chance you're going to have better quality and better quality audio and whatnot. So yeah,
and I totally agree. I'm just messing, but I totally agree with you. The audio quality makes a huge difference, because I have seen, because I've been around audio and video projects for a long time. I mean, at this point, it's probably over 1,000 video projects that I've worked on, and I've definitely seen some where there's great quality video, and then something is off about the audio, and it's like, I can't even watch this. Or, I do a lot of podcasting stuff primarily now.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, if it's a live like this, you can get away with it because people do understand, hey, sometimes things go wrong in a live.
Sure.
But as soon as it's a podcast on a podcast platform where it's audio only, there's an audio issue or people are muffled or, the audio is not leveled between the two people talking. Man, it's so distracting.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That piece is huge. And then, yeah, I really love what you were saying about whatever is going on is going to come out, and that's true with your tone of voice. It's true with how your actual voice sounds, but then the body language piece as well, right? If you're
Sure.
frustrated, if you're distracted, whatever, people can pick up on those nonverbal cues. And what do they say? It's like 7% of communication is the words you use, or something like that. And so people are getting that through the way that you're speaking. So I love that advice of just, well, let me ask you a follow up on that. What is your routine, or what do you do? Like, let's say, because everybody has frustrating things that happen in life, right? So you're getting ready to go into, you got a super nice looking studio, right? You're getting ready to go into your sound studio, and whatever, the dog just pooped on the floor or something, and you're like fuming. What do you do to help center yourself, or what do you do to get in the zone when things don't work out perfectly, but you gotta get in and do the work?
Well, thankfully, it doesn't happen too often. But I know that when I open the door and I step in here, I have to be present, and I have to, convey the message of that script. I can't just. I try to leave everything outside the booth. Sometimes I'll do some deep breathing, or I'll do the Superman pose, or some other thing to get my mind off of whatever is there. And it's just mindfulness, general mindfulness stuff, that if you can get away from what it is that's distracting you, and being as present as possible. It's hard to do, but you got to leave it outside the booth. You can't bring it inside the booth. If you bring it inside the booth, people will hear it, and when I'm getting paid to connect their message to their audience, I don't have a choice. I have to do what I can to leave myself outside the booth, and that's it. Like, there's no option.
Yeah, and there's two things that you talked about there that I think are practical for anybody. And this is even if, obviously we're kind of talking here about you're creating a video that's going to go on your homepage, or you're creating content that ultimately is for marketing. But what you just said and what you're talking about applies even if you're going to get on a Zoom call with somebody, a coworker, or whatever, right? If you
Sure.
if you are bringing in frustration from outside of your office, or outside into that, people pick up on those nonverbal cues. And so learning how
Yep.
to recognize that, and take a second, pause, recognize where that frustration is coming from, or whatever, be able to release that, at least for the time being. Maybe long term deal with it, so that you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing that, right? But I think that's super important when you're getting ready to talk with somebody, because people can feel when you're not making there were the two pieces, right? You're saying, hey, you need to actually acknowledge that there are other things going on in your life, be mindful, then step out of that when you're going to especially record something for a client. But then the other piece you said is for you to be able to connect with the audience of the person that you're doing, the company you're doing the work for.
Sure.
And
Sure.
that's huge too, right? Because ultimately, a lot of the people I talk to and work with are small business owners, or work with founders, a lot of founders.
Hmm.
And in that case, they have to be able to make that connection with people.
Yes.
And that might be clients, but it's also investors, or, on sales calls, or whatever. And then,
Sure.
if they're going to create any kind of social content or anything like that, they have to be able to make that connection. And so it's very easy to get stuck in a bad mind space, especially if you need to close deals, or you're wondering where your revenue is going to come from, and you get on it. I'm just going to say it this way because it connects, I think, with a lot of people. Is you're getting into a sales call and you're desperate. You're like, I got to make this happen or my business is going to, if you don't do what you just said, so you got to step out of that mind space. You got to do your Superman pose, take some deep breaths, do whatever it takes to put that aside, the desperation aside, or, those feelings of, I have to make something happen here. Because when you talk, that's going to come across and you're not going to be able to be present and connect with the person on the other side. So love
absolutely. If you, it's no different than me if I'm sending a cold email or calling somebody. If I need that sale, right? If I'm like desperate for that sale, well, they're going to hear it or feel it or sense it or whatnot. So if you're a small business owner and sales haven't been great, and this year it's been a mixed bag of stuff for people, and you're doing a pitch, you're doing a presentation, you're doing something, and you have in the back of your mind, I need a sale. Guess how your verbal language, your presentation is going to come across? Needy, desperate. Or if you're being pushed by your sales manager to get more sales this week, guess what's going to happen? You're going to come across as pushy. It's going to come through in your body language and your voice, and it's not helpful. So having that sense of self-awareness, because you can't do anything without having an understanding of what you're doing and how you're being perceived. So
yeah, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this topic because we actually kind of asked you one question and then we went deep on that. We got other things to cover, but I loved your answer, and I'll keep coming back to it because it comes down to two things that I think apply way outside of what the topic is today, and that's kind of why I'm honing in on it. Because these are two things that I've been learning over the last few years that have totally transformed my career and what I'm doing today, which is building actual, real, genuine connections with other people, whether that's one-to-one, when you're creating content, any of that it's easy to get stuck in this idea of, well, business isn't personal and let's just close as many deals as possible and, very transactional, versus how do I build a connection with the person I'm talking to right now, even if there's not a possibility of this turning into a deal this quarter or whatever. Like, how do I build a deep enough connection to where there's lasting impact with that person? And then the other thing that you really hit on here that I think applies to so many other things is mindset. And I know everybody talks about mindsets and it can sound kind of woo-woo, but it is amazing how the way that you think changes the way that other people think about you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much nonverbal communication that happens, whether you realize it or not. The way that you think about yourself and the way you're talking to yourself and what you think is possible, what you think other people think of you. If you get stuck in these really bad mind spaces where you're constantly worried on a call if this person likes you or not or whatever, instead of just being like, hey, I know I'm doing great things. I know I'm changing people's lives and helping clients. If this person doesn't like me, bummer. I'm gonna still connect with them. And then when you do that, more people like you because you're not putting that out there. So anyway, I just wanted to really hone in on that because I think your advice there is obviously excellent for voiceover and doing, voice, but it also applies to a lot of other things. But yeah, I'd love to lean into just a couple ultra practical things that people can do when they are going to speak, because there's lots of different trainings that you can do on vocal variety or whatever. But then you kind of also just said, hey, you don't want to get into that radio announcer voice and be inauthentic. So what are some things that people can do? Let me set a baseline for why I'm saying this. I tend to talk in a very monotone voice by nature. And so I've really been working on having more vocal variety and making that part of my natural speech, even when I'm having a normal conversation, so that it is actually the way that I talk more than it used to be. And I don't get stuck in this monotone that's just boring where nobody listens to what I have to say. But at the same time, it's really easy to get into that like hype voice, and be inauthentic. So what are some tips that you have for people to be more interesting when they're talking without kind of hitting into that inauthentic space?
Yeah, I think it all boils down to your interest, right? If you're really interested in what you're saying, if you have a real passion for it, that will come out. I don't think you have to, if you concern yourself with, oh, I sound like this all the time and it sounds monotone. that may just be how you speak. And to add other things to it may take you out of your authentic self, right? So, um, who you're talking to matters. What you're saying matters. Why you're saying it. If you have that intentionality, and you find places, and if you don't have a script, that's even better, because then everything that comes out, you have an intensity, you have a variety that just comes naturally. The more you try to force, well, I feel like I'm on it. Okay, well, some people have a very flat way of speaking.
Mm.
It's having a smile. Just adding a smile makes the audio sound more, your speech sound more personable. Um, if I was listening to an audiobook and the person was talking like this the whole time, I'd probably fall asleep after 5 minutes.
Right.
Um, but if you're really passionate about what you're saying, and it's not just, oh, I have to do this. Again, a lot of it comes down to mindset. What's going on here. So if you come into it going, oh, I got to do this video because my marketing team says I got it. I'm the CEO. I got to sit here, and I look rigid, and and I've seen so many very bad local commercials where lawyers sit there and talk to each other, and it looks so contrived, and like just
So
if and it sort of goes to something I was going to mention. If you are the leader of a company, CEO or director of sales, and you feel you have to be the voice of a video or an audio podcast, you ask yourself why. Does your customer care?
mm,
Is it really a personal story? Not like, I started this business in 1994 and I've done. Okay, there's some story there. But if you're just a figurehead because you want to hey, look at me, I'm on this video, I had a production crew, like status, then it doesn't really make sense. Then you have somebody like me come in and convey the message in a way that's personable and connects with the audience.
mm,
But if you're doing it because you feel you have to, it's like, okay, Steve, you're our talking head, go and talk, and you don't feel like you need to or want to, well, then you're gonna dial it in. You're not going to give that energy and empathy and the energy that it's needed, right? So I don't think you have to change. I think you just need to think about how to be more enthusiastic about it.
yeah, that's a really good point. And you said a couple things I want to hone in on, and then we'll switch gears to because you mentioned bringing in a voice actor, which will be a great transition to the next part. But a couple things you talked about that I think are really interesting. So one is excitement, and I've definitely been around some people lately, and they've talked about this. Like, you have to actually be excited. Like, if you get on a sales call with somebody, you have to actually believe that you're going to help them, not fake excitement, not
Yeah,
manufactured excitement. Like, you have to go, hey, wait a minute, like, write down all these things that you've done that have helped clients before, that are like the people that you're talking to, and look at those and go, wow, that's actually kind of amazing. I help these people do this thing. And then you get on with somebody, and obviously they don't know they don't need what you have, then don't try to sell it to them and connect them with somebody. But if they need what you have, and the best thing for them is going to be to work with you, you can be excited because you can go, oh my gosh, what you just described is exactly what we help people do. It's amazing.
yeah,
And then you're actually genuinely excited about it. Then, like you're saying, that comes across. And when people get excited, they tend to have more vocal variety. They tend to talk in a more interesting way. It's when you get stuck in your head, you're trying to follow a script, you're trying to, do something that is manufactured and contrived, then
yeah.
you sound really boring.
Listen back to the last 2 minutes. I guarantee you'll say, wait, I didn't sound monotone. Just that last little minute. Watch. What? Because you're passionate about something. And I used to be in sales I'm always in sales, but I used to be in sales for like 24 years. And I tell you, I didn't feel confident in selling something I didn't believe in. And
Mm,
so if you're selling something, if you're producing video that is talking about, the pride of your company, and you don't really believe it, well, we're not going to believe it. Right. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And
yeah.
then what you were talking about with CEOs, it's so interesting because I've worked on video content with a lot of CEOs over the years. And one thing I found so interesting is that a lot of CEOs, or let me say it this way, a lot of very charismatic people who are great and so personable one-on-one or in a group. They're amazing. They're like the magnet in the room, and you get them in front of a camera and they're like the worst. And I think part of it is because they're used to engaging with somebody, right? So when they get
Sure.
they read the energy of other people, and I'm not saying that in like a some crazy way. They're just really good at reading people, and they're getting
Yep.
feedback, and they're changing how they're talking and what they're saying based on the feedback they're getting from the room. So when the room is a camera that they're staring into, then they tend to like really struggle with that, and it takes some work to get them to not feel manufactured, right? And you're like, just be yourself. It can be really hard for people to do that.
I believe the term is called deer in headlights.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and it's that belief, and whether or not it's a camera or a microphone, it's like, I have to perform, I have to be something different. And
Yeah,
to that point, if the CEO was just having a conversation with instead of the video producer sitting off camera, it was somebody within their team, and they just started talking, and they would just record the whole thing, they would get their more of an authentic self, because the
absolutely.
conversation would be more genuine. But it's like, so
Absolutely.
Steve, what do you think of it? Well, I da, and they're so stiff, and they're wooden, and they're not their true self. So yeah, great point.
Totally agree. And it's interesting because I can think of these two CEOs that I've worked with. One of them, they're both actually are in the biotech space, and one of them, very charismatic person in life, but then for whatever reason on video, he's horrible, and just really struggles with that. But there's this other
Yeah.
CEO I've been working with for a little while, and he's talking about very technical, very scientific things, but he is so excited about the technology that they built and what they've done and how it's helping
Hmm.
clients that I don't know half of what he's saying, but I want to watch these videos just because of his excitement level. And it's
Yep.
amazing how that level of enthusiasm and excitement is contagious. Like I
Yep.
genuinely, if he came to me and he's like, I want you to quit everything else you're doing and come work for me, I probably wouldn't do it, but I would at least like think about it, just because being around somebody that's that charismatic and not, again, like not in a manufactured way. He's actually genuinely believes in what he's doing, to the point
Yep.
where anytime he talks about it, it comes across. So I love what you were saying there about maybe even picking the stories that you are excited about. So instead of talking about the thing that's going to be boring that you hate doing, think of the
Yep.
client that you've served and just talk about the impact that what you guys did made in their life, and that's going
Yep.
to come across so much better. All right.
Authenticity. Just one quick thing before you move on. If in those kind of CEO talking head videos, you had a conversation about a moment in time where they felt really passionate about something, and then started asking questions, their demeanor may be more engaging, just because they've had that rush of adrenaline of talking about something that they really care about, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And so maybe to your point, maybe it's less about me going, okay, how do I not talk in monotone, and how do I talk about things that I care about? And, how do I even, like, something that's really been helpful, and we have about 6 minutes to cover the other section that I really want to cover. So I'm going to make this brief, but it's when everybody talks about story, right? Anytime you're in
Mhm.
marketing, it's like, oh, you got to tell story, 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 story,
Yeah.
whatever. And it can be really difficult because you're like, how do I manufacture the story? But there's two things I've learned about story from people who are amazing, just amazing at doing it. One is focus on the stories that other people can relate to, not the
Hmm.
things that are unique to you that nobody else can relate to, but what
Yep.
are the things that you've experienced, that you've gone through, where other people are going to go, oh wow, me too. Not, oh my gosh, this you're so amazing. Like, they might be entertained for a minute, but they're going to forget about you. Whereas if they
Sure.
go, wow, that person's experienced something like I have, but they've overcome that, and now I'm inspired to do the same. Like,
Yep.
that's really powerful. But the other piece is telling client stories, uh, telling stories about where you've seen a client overcome the specific thing that other people run into over and over and over again, and you pick 4 or 5 stories, and you work through those to be able to tell them in a really good, engaging way.
Hmm.
And then you think about that, and you go and you get excited about it. And then when you tell it, you get super excited. So
Yeah.
rather than going like, oh yeah, I help people launch podcasts, and it could be helpful, whatever. It's like, I've worked with a client who over the last 2 years has generated $2 million in revenue directly through his show, and now he's getting speaking opportunities when he started in a brand new industry. Like, that's really amazing. And being able to think through those stories and tell them and get excited about what you've helped to do for clients, it's a really easy way to be authentic, be excited, all that kind of stuff. So
I would even focus on how they were changed by working with them. Like, they were very much introverted. They wouldn't go to networking events, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, they were doing this and they were doing that. And as a result, this is the financial impact. So we relate on we can relate to people on an emotional level. So they were very apprehensive. They were very shy. They weren't very confident. Now they're doing this. Like, that we can relate to. Oh, I used to feel that way and now I'm not, or I aspire to be. So the more human the connection, the more connected the story will land, right? So we help dodo people. People is just so random, no specificity, right? So the more specific you can make it, the more relatable, the more chance it's going to connect.
Yeah, and anyway, we could keep going for an hour. It's funny because I literally just got off the call before this with somebody, and we were talking about that, and I was saying to them, like, if you really want to build influence with people, you have to not just solve, you have to solve a business problem for people if you want to make money at the end of the day. But you just called me out on what I was saying, which is awesome. I'm talking about a business problem that I helped this person solve. But what I've really seen happen is the transformation of this guy as a person, right? And so when you focus on how you help people solve personal problems, that when they're finished working with you, they're different as a person and their life is changed and the trajectory of their life has changed, and you focus on that, and then the business thing was the thing that brought the personal change, right? Not the other way around. And that's really a great point and helping me to even rethink how I'm telling those stories. So I love it. Okay, so when should somebody do the DIY version, try to figure this out on their own, and at what point should they really consider bringing in voiceover talent?
So this is just my opinion. If you ask 100 people, you'll get 100 different opinions. But my opinion is, if the story is personal to the person, right, to the CEO, to the leader, to the whatever, and it's a really personal connection, then that person should do the storytelling because they speak from a deep place of authenticity. If it's generic, that's not really coming from a specific person's point of view, then it might make more sense to hire a professional who can give the words the necessary attention without being boring or disconnected, right? So just having Mary in the office do the recording, yes, you can do that. And unfortunately, there's a epidemic of good enough. But if you want to, like we just talked about, if you want to connect with somebody, with your audience on a deeper level, you can't just have somebody, take a USB microphone, go into the second office or the closet and record something. Because that's a touch point. And if you aspire to the Disney model, that every touch point is a moment to create some kind of connection with your audience, then everything. So why would you spend all this time, energy, and resources on the video part, and then just sort of we'll just get this person in the office to do the audio? Like, the audio quality might not be correct. You may not have the right connectivity with the delivery, all the kind of fun stuff. But if it's a personal message, yes, have that person say it, because then it has the authenticity, as long as they know how to speak with passion. But otherwise, I mean, it's like I don't change my oil or fix my tires. I get a professional.
Yeah, and especially for those like explainer videos, or a video that's going to go on the homepage of your website, where you're spending all of this money on marketing to get people there, and then you have monotone Joe on there talking through in a way that's not going to connect. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so if somebody goes, okay, yeah, we've worked on this project, we're investing a ton of money, whatever, like we just spent $10,000 on having somebody come in and film and, do all this stuff, or we've gotten an animation done, or whatever the case is. And they go, okay, I need to bring somebody in. What are some of the things that they should look for? Because I mean, I'll say it this way. I've never hired voiceover talent. So if I had a video that needed to be done, like what are the things I should look for?
Good question, because there's a million places you could find voice talent. There's online casting sites, there's individual talent, there's agencies, other production companies. You want somebody who actually cares. You want somebody who's done the work you're looking to get done. And listening to their demos or work samples will give you great feedback as to whether or not they actually are connecting, the audio quality is good, all the sort of the basic necessities. And getting some help, having somebody give you guidance, like if you're working with a video production company, well, then they should have the expertise to find the right voice for that project, because if it's targeting females, you may want a female voice. If it's neutral, whatever, like you may want to have somebody help you out, because sometimes you don't know what you're looking for, right? So if you don't know what you're looking for, then hey, that sounds good to me, and $50 sounds about right to me. Like, you don't know, right? So it's kind of hard for somebody who's never hired to figure out where to go and who to look for and whatnot. So,
well, so let me then take this one step further and say, when I'm asking you to sell here just a little bit. Okay, so I'm giving you permission.
Okay.
When should somebody reach out to you specifically? Like, what is the kind of work where if they're working on a project that's XYZ or in this arena or whatever, when should they reach out to David versus just going to anybody else?
Well, I spent 24 years in the corporate world before I started this voiceover journey. So if it's anything to do in a corporate environment, so from commercials, e-learning, corporate videos, explainers, telephone systems, just reach out directly, davidgilbertvoiceover.com, and we can discuss your needs. I can give you an audition, give you a custom quote, all that fun stuff. Generally speaking, what I do is the tail end of the production. Right, so they've already done all the video production, they've already done all this other stuff. The only place it's not is telephone system messaging and maybe radio commercials. So it tends to be an afterthought, although the planning should be done up front. So if you're doing a 2-minute or 90-second explainer, don't have 400 words. Don't have more words that you're trying to have the person say than can actually fit the time. And above all else, read the script out loud to yourself first, because what may look good on paper may not sound good when spoken, because it's two different things. If that answers the question, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, where can people find more about you?
davidgilbertvoiceover.com, or email david@davidgilbertvoiceover.com.
And I know you're also active on LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn, at David Gilbert VO.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, David, for joining me today. Really appreciate everything you shared. It actually more than I thought. You said a couple things.
I'm here all week. I can talk for more. Yeah.
You said a couple things that have really been on my mind, and I'm not just saying that. Connecting with people, mindset, and then getting into that idea of making it personal for the person you're talking to, right? Talking about the personal transformations versus just, the brass tacks business transformation. And those are things I'm thinking about and talking about a lot. And you're helping me think through those things even more. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great chat.
All right. And that'll do it for today's live. So look forward to seeing you all next time.